up, guys? Welcome to this edition of a Funko Popcast. I'm DK Wrestler.
And I'm MD Shady.
And in today's podcast, it's an all NFT podcast, something we were going to do right at the beginning of the year. But of course, we had our little hiatus, in which in this podcast, one of our biggest focus will be talking about what we want to see in 2024. Considering we've already gotten now, I guess, 3 drops as we're recording this. We've gotten the Squid Game drop, the Harry Potter drop, and then I guess as this podcast gets released, the Fantastic Plastic Series 2 drop will happen, and we'll probably get the 4th announcement on the same day this podcast gets released. So we'll talk about what we think of the drops thus far in 2024 and then what we want to see. And then we'll do another NFT podcast near the end of the year when we talk about all the sets put together. But to kick off, we will do what we were supposed to do at the beginning of the year, and that's talk about the last half of 2023, considering we did do a podcast back in July, I believe, talking about the first half of 2023 drops. So nonetheless, we will kick off with the Stranger Things drop, which this drop had 6 pops. The first one we have is the Dragon Grail, which was limited to 1,106 pieces. While the legendaries, we have ourselves Dustin, Lucas, Mike, and Will the Wise, which are limited to 3,000 pieces. And then the royalty, of course, is Freddie Funko as Eddie Munson, which is limited to 3,600 pieces. And I know you definitely liked this drop, considering it's Stranger Things. It's one of the big sets you collect overall for Funko.
Yeah, I really enjoy this set. I think that it's interesting that they did the boys in their like D&D outfits. I really like the Freddie Funko as Eddie Munson. I think that that's an awesome pop. And I definitely got a lot of the pops out of this drop, which is really, really cool. The one thing I don't really understand, though, is that if each 4 of the boys are limited to 3,000 pieces, how is the Freddie Funko limited to 3,600? I'm confused about that because you need you don't need the legendaries to get the royalty. Okay, so that makes more sense. But it is interesting that there is more pieces for that pop because I definitely believe that that will be the most valuable pop out of this set.
Yeah, for the royalty, in case maybe you're a new person for NFTs, never really dabbled into it, but maybe this podcast is your first experience knowing about it. The royalty you get while collecting all the cards that aren't the legendary and grails that you do get a physical redemption for. So obviously common, uncommon, rare, and epics. You get all of those cards, and then you get yourself the royalty for that. So now going to what we normally do, our favorites and least favorites for this set. I know MD put the Freddie Funko over, but honestly, the Freddie Funko as Eddie Munson is my least favorite of these pops, considering that it's my huge gripe when it comes to all of these Freddie Funko pops, is that you're basically taking a regular Freddie Funko head and then you're mashing it with a regular Eddie Munson body that you have there from the Target exclusive, that I feel like honestly it'd be much cheaper for you just to buy a regular Freddie Funko and buy that regular Eddie Munson, and then just smashing both the heads from this head and body from each of the pops together. And it would honestly be cheaper too, is that if you wanted a box, you could probably get someone to like 3D print your own box there, and it'd probably be much cheaper than trying to get the royalty. But then my favorite of this set, this one's a bit difficult, but I'm just going to go with the Dustin, just because Dustin's my favorite character from Stranger Things, so I think that looks cool. I almost went with the dragon.
All right, so least favorite I actually thought was going to be Will the Wise. The reason for that is because we have seen 2 Will the Wise pops in the past, but I do like this one and it's a little bit different. I think that my least favorite would have to be the dragon. It doesn't really make sense to be a grail to me necessarily, and it's not even technically a character from Stranger Things, so it's really interesting that they've made a pop of that, and it's a pop that's kind of eluded me, so I'm gonna have to find it at some point. And then my favorite, of course, is the Freddie Funko as Eddie Munson. Freddie Munson, love it. I think it looks good. I can't wait to have this pop in my collection.
All right, so the next drop is the Power Rangers Series 2 set, which this set is actually based off of the movie instead of the TV series like we've seen in Series 1 in 2022. Kicking off with the Grail, 999 pieces. We're back to that normal Grail piece count. The other one was just based off of Stranger Things Day with 1106. So 999 pieces. It is Dulcia, then followed by the legendaries, which all of them are limited to 1,900 pieces, which we have ourselves Aisha, Billy, Kimberly, and Tommy. And then we have ourselves the royalty of Freddie Funko as Ivan Ooze, which is limited to 2,400 pieces.
Yeah, this set's pretty interesting. I'm surprised that they went with a Power Rangers movie set for the NFT lineup, but I don't think it's too bad. It's nice versions of some characters, basically like unmasked, I guess you can say, and they look pretty cool in these fighting poses as well. And it's very interesting to see the Freddy Funko as Ivan Ooze, though we've never seen an Ivan Ooze actual pop before.
Yeah, so when it comes to the favorites and least favorites, I think a lot of people may agree with what I say, maybe not, but my least favorite pop of the set, it's definitely got to be one of the unmasked ones, and I'm just going to go with like Kimberly, honestly. I don't know what it is. I was going to go with like Aisha, but I knew Tommy I wasn't because I know that's Jason David Frank, if I'm not mistaken, so props to him. So that'd be my favorite of the unmasked, but not like one of my favorites overall. But I think the best pop actually is the royalty this time around with the Freddy Funko's Ivan Ooze, mainly because of the detail that's involved. And also, it just creates that controversy of like, why didn't they just do an Ivan Ooze Funko Pop by itself since there hasn't been one before instead of transforming the Freddy Funko into the Ivan Ooze? I think it would have been way better even if you made it as the Grail instead of the Dulcia and then do Dulcia as like one of the legendaries and possibly remove one of the unmasked ones because this set was a bit lackluster when literally every legendary is just unmasked versions.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. My favorite is gotta be the Freddy Funko as Ivan Ooze. And my least favorite, I'm gonna go with Billy, just because we've had different like Blue Ranger pops before. I don't want to hate on Kimberly either. And then it's cool to see Asha, and then obviously with Dulcia. And then the Tommy is also a really badass pop. But definitely the Ivan Ooze for my favorite and Billy for least favorite. But I don't really hate on any of these pops.
All right, so the next set we have here is Series 1 of Steven Universe, which we only have 5 redeemables in this case. So starting off with the Grail, 999 pieces, we have ourselves Blue Diamond. Then for the Legendaries, which are all limited to 2,000 pieces, we have ourselves first Garnet, Ruby, and then Sapphire, followed by the Royalty being Freddy Funko as Steven, limited to 2,300 pieces.
This is a pretty exciting drop. I definitely used to collect the Steven Universe pop, so it's nice to see some characters that we haven't seen before in pop form. Blue Diamond as the Grail is really cool. Garnet, this pop's actually kind of badass. I like this one, but I don't think it's necessarily needed for this set. There's so many characters that they could have done to give us another Garnet, just doesn't really make sense. But Ruby and Sapphire are really awesome as well. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Ruby and Sapphire are the two crystal gems that actually make Garnet. I could have that wrong, but I believe that's how it goes. And then the Freddy Funko as Steven, that's kind of funny. It doesn't really scream that's a Freddy Funko to me. It kind of just looks like Steven with orange hair, but it's a pretty cool pop.
All right, so favorites and least favorites. Obviously, I haven't really seen Steven Universe all that much besides maybe 1 or 2 episodes, so I can't really relate. But I'm just going to say for my least favorite is Garnet, just because we've seen Garnet pops before, while the other characters, I believe we've never seen a Blue Diamond, we've never seen a Ruby, we may have seen Sapphire from what I last remember. But I know Garnet, we've had a couple of versions, so it's already an existing pop, it's just a different version. And then I think for my favorite, I gotta go with the Royalty again. Usually I'm not really a fan of the Royalties, but I think it's the aspect of, even though it is Freddy Funko as Steven, it's more of Steven Universe as Freddy Funko because it's just Steven Universe, except that it has the classic orangey red hair that Freddy Funko has. I just think that's a little bit funny of a way to add a Steven pop, in my opinion.
So I gotta agree with DK for the least favorite being the Garnet. It's just we've had Garnet pops that were honestly better than this one in my opinion. And then my favorite, I really want to go with Ruby and Sapphire, but unfortunately I can't take both of them. So I'm gonna go with the Blue Diamond. She's pretty cool, and that really makes sense to be a Grail in my opinion. So yeah, that's a pretty cool pop, and I definitely like the set.
All right, so the next set we have here is Jurassic Park Series 1, a pretty interesting set. We got ourselves 6 redeemables in the set, starting off with the Grail, 999 pieces. It is the Mosquito in Amber, followed by the legendary pops, all limited to 1,900 pieces of Dr. Alan Grant with the baby dino, a Dr. Ian Malcolm with Flair, a Dr. Ellie Sattler standalone pop, and then a T-Rex with Banner. And then we have ourselves the Royalty being Freddy Funko as Dr. Ian Malcolm, limited to 2,550 pieces.
This is a pretty interesting set. You get a good range of dino characters as well as the human characters, which you definitely like to see when it comes to something with an NFT drop. And there's some pretty cool pops in here, honestly. I really enjoy the Mosquito and Amber. I think that that's very interesting to do. And then Freddie Funko as Dr. Ian Malcolm is also hilarious too. So yeah, there's some good stuff in here.
So for my favorites and least favorites, I'm thinking for my least favorite, it's got to be a toss up between the T Rex with Banner and the Dr. Ian Malcolm with Flair, just because I don't know. I feel like for me, the T Rex with Banner, I think it would have been better if it was the Grail, in my opinion. I just feel like, even though it actually, from what I last seen, it actually is the most expensive legendary out of all of the four legendaries. But you know what? I'm just going to go with the Dr. Ian Malcolm with Flair. I don't know. I get it. Dr. Ian Malcolm, he's one of those popular characters. And my favorite's going to be the Grail, the Mosquito and Amber. There's just something about it. It just seems, it's so obscure. And that's what I like about it, especially taking something as tiny as a mosquito, but then adding that amber around it so that it's actually like a pretty decently sized pop. I don't think it's going to be like as big as the human characters when the physicals finally get shipped out and into people's homes, but I think it's going to be like at least maybe a size of a Pokemon pop, maybe a little bit bigger. So I like that obscurity when you take something that seems like it's a bad idea to make on paper, but I think it'll be executed very well once the physicals start getting to people's homes.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the T-Rex with Banner as my least favorite from this set. I don't know, we've seen T-Rex pops before. We definitely could have seen a different dinosaur that we haven't gotten before, but it's not a bad pop by any means, and it also has that sideways box, and I'm not a huge fan of the sideways boxes. And then my favorite out of the set has to be the Mosquito in Amber. It's really close to being the royalty because that is hilarious to see Freddie Funko in that position, but the Mosquito in Amber is super different from what we've seen, and I think it's just perfect for an NFT set.
So the next set we're going to be looking at, it's actually was a very fun set, not going to lie, when opening up these packs. It is the Warner Brothers 100 Series 1 set. We have 6 redeemables here, starting off with the Grail, which we have Wile E. Coyote as Batman, limited to 999 pieces. Then we have 4 legendaries in this set, all limited to 1,300 pieces, starting off with the Lola Bunny as Jane Jetson, the Bugs Bunny as Morpheus, Porky Pig as Robin, and the Roadrunner as the Flash. And then we have ourselves the Royalty, limited to 1,900 pieces, and it's Daffy Duck as Pennywise.
This was a pretty interesting set. It's cool for, of course, the Warner Bros. 100-year anniversary, and I think that they did this fairly well. They took Looney Tunes, one of their like top properties, and they gave us a nice range of characters to mash them up with. They didn't just go with DC, though it is mostly DC. They also gave us Jetsons, The Matrix, as well as It, which is really, really cool. I'm glad that they went with that style. And some of these pops are way too sweet.
So for least favorites and favorites, my least favorite, I think I'm gonna have to go with Lola Bunny as Jane Jetson. There's this, I don't know, that one just seems a little bit weird. I almost went with Bugs Bunny as Morpheus. And then for my favorite, I gotta go with the legendary of Roadrunner as the Flash. That is like easily the best mashup they have done out of the whole entire set. It's just Roadrunner runs fast, the Flash runs fast. It was literally a match made for heaven, so to speak. And a close second, though, is the Royalty, because I think that's, once again, a mashup that it seems so bad on paper, but it was executed so well, the way that they pulled off Daffy Duck, and especially holding that red balloon with the It logo on it. I think that turned out very well. I wouldn't be surprised if people say that that's their favorite pop, but I gotta go with Roadrunner as the Flash.
So for my least favorite, this is kind of tough because I honestly like all 6 of these pops. I don't think any of them are really bad. I think for my least favorite, I'm gonna go with Bugs Bunny as Morpheus, just because Bugs Bunny has had lots of different characters as terms to pops, but I do like that they included Morpheus in this. And then my favorite has got to be the Daffy Duck as Pennywise. Like DK said, it's a mashup that when you hear about it, you think like, how the heck are they gonna do that? But the way they did it is amazing. It looks hilarious, but it also looks really cool at the same time.
All right, so the next set we're looking at is actually a set I plan to get the master set for, and that is Back to the Future Series 1. So we got 6 redeemables here. Starting off with the Grail, it is Marty Undercover, limited to 999 pieces, along with the legendaries all being limited to 1900 pieces, which we have ourselves Doc 1885, George McFly, Griff 2015, Lorraine Baines in a prom dress, and then the royalty being Freddy Funko as Doc with helmet, limited to 2,500 pieces.
This set's really awesome. It's one that me and DK had both been expecting to see eventually. And of course, because DK does collect basically all of the Back to the Future pops, I knew that he would be wanting to go for all of these pops. And I don't think they really disappointed. They gave us some really cool characters here.
So now favorites and least favorites. This is going to be really difficult because all of these pops are really awesome, especially the way they executed the Freddy Funko as Doc with helmet. My least favorite. Oh, why is this so difficult? I may have to say the Freddy Funko. The Freddy Funko though is still awesome with the fact that not only do they have like the red hair for Freddy Funko and it's copying the Doc as helmet pop, but with the paper that originally has the flux capacitor, it is not in the shape of the triangle, it is in the shape of the Funko crown, which is such amazing detail. But I definitely had to say Freddy Funko just because if I could only choose 5, it would have to be the actual characters from the movie. But my favorite, I think my favorite has to be the Lorraine, although my second would be George because we've never gotten pops of either or of those characters. And with the Lorraine, it's exactly how I imagined it, where it's her in her prom dress at the Enchantment Under the Sea dance in the first movie. And then maybe like even Griff would have been up there too, had he also had his crazily huge hoverboard that you see in the second movie.
My least favorite also has to be the Freddy Funko. It is unfortunate because it is cool, but like DK said, I agree that if I had to pick 5 of these pops, it would be those actual characters from the movie. And then my favorite, this one is tough, but I think I'm going to go with the Griff 2015. I like that pop, but again, like DK said, it would have been a lot better if it did have that hoverboard.
The next set of pops we have is the Funkoween Series 1, or technically it's also known as the Funko Halloween Series 3 drop, because this is the third Halloween-related pop. So we have 6 redeemables, which the first one we have, limited to 999 pieces, the Grail. It is Freddy Funko as Zombie Samurai, along with the legendaries all being limited to 1,900 pieces. We got ourselves Freddy Funko as Zombie Gunslinger, Freddy Funko as Zombie Knight, Freddy Funko as Zombie Ninja, and then Freddy Funko as Zombie Pirate, along with the royalty being Proto as Zombie, limited to 2,500 pieces, in which this is the very first set that actually has specification pops, all of them being glow in the dark.
On paper, I don't love this set, but as you look at the pops, it's actually really cool. Some of these pops are super detailed, and we also get a proto, which is really awesome to see. And adding the glow in the dark to these pops is definitely something that enhances them. I would assume, at least. I haven't seen these pops in person to see the glow, but it is a really cool set with the detail. It's kind of unfortunate that they're all zombies, but at least they are Freddy Funko as a zombie, and that zombie happens to be like, let's say, a samurai. So that's pretty cool.
All right, so for my least favorite, and you actually brought up the point of something that I actually didn't like about the set is how it's Freddy Funko as a zombie as something else, while I wish they would have went down the route that they did with the 2 previous sets where it was Freddy Funko dressed up as something, whether it was a universal monster or just something creepy, and then just kept one of them as a zombie. But I think my least favorite has to be, I gotta go with the Zombie Knight. I almost went with the Ninja, but I like the detail of like the ninja star being stuck in the head of the ninja. But the Knight, there's just nothing like, I mean, there's the nice detail of the blood, but at least with all the other like legendaries, like the Gunslinger looks badass. I think the best legendary, and it's not listed as my favorite overall, is the pirate one with like the chest and everything. That's really cool. But yeah, the Freddy Funko as Zombie Knight has the least detail, in my opinion, out of the other 4, or I should say other 3 legendaries, and then the 1 Grail. Also, my favorite pop of the set is is the royalty Proto as zombie. I think this would have been the pop if we went down the route that I mentioned that only one of them should be a zombie. I think Proto would have been perfect as a zombie. The detail is awesome. He's holding his own limb. He's got like the drool coming down his mouth, and you see part of his brain. And also you have that cool detail of the crown being green. And I think the glow will look excellent out of all the six pops the most from this one because of the fact that the majority of the colors are green, and we know that green is the best color when it comes to glow.
I'm gonna have to agree. My least favorite is the Freddy Funko as Zombie Knight. It does the least for me. The other ones are a lot better in my opinion. And then my favorite from this set, of course, is the Proto as Zombie. It's really cool that we're starting to see some Proto stuff from Funko, and this one is badass as the zombie. I mean, the arm being ripped off and in his hand, and then the drool coming out of his mouth is really cool. You see some of his exposed brain, which is awesome. This is just a really, really good figure.
So the next set we're looking at is the Powerpuff Girls Series 1 set. We got 6 redeemables, starting off with the Grail, 999 pieces. It is Mojo Jojo, more of like a baby form, I would assume, or a smaller form. And then we have ourselves the Legendary Pops, all limited to 1,800 pieces this time around, which we got ourselves Blossom, Buttercup, and Bubbles, all with different instruments, whether it's guitar, bass, or drums. And then last but not least, which probably is the fan favorite, if I were to assume correctly, is the Professor Utonium. And then we have ourselves the royalty being Freddy Funko as Mojo Jojo, limited to 2,700 pieces.
This set's pretty cool. It's interesting to see more versions of Blossom, Buttercup, and Bubbles, considering we've seen technically 3 different versions of them, plus these ones, so 4 different versions of them, if I'm doing my math correctly there. And it's very surprising to me that the Professor Utonium is not the Grail in this set. It's just a legendary, because that pop is one that I've been waiting for a long time, to see Professor Utonium in pop form. And I feel like a lot of people definitely have to agree with that. And the Mojo Jojo is okay as the Grail, but I don't know, it just doesn't scream Grail pop to me. But maybe people love this version of Mojo Jojo with that quantum physics book.
So, as terms to favorites and least favorites. So for my least favorite, I think I may have to go with the royalty, only because like I was gonna go with like one of the Powerpuff Girls, but it just seems so weird to like pick one and then you think the other two, because I think they're equally cool, especially because I feel like it's one of those things where like you're kind of forced to get all 3 of them because like you only have like, oh, one instrument, so it's just so weird to not have the rest of the band together. But with the royalty, I just feel like all they really did was just take the Mojo Jojo body, and then like they had the Freddy Funko, but they just added the green face to it, even though it would be a different molding because of the Mojo Jojo head. So it is a bit different and goes towards to what I like about Freddy Funko Pops. But I don't know. I kind of also dig the Grail Pop, which is why I didn't put that as my least favorite. But my favorite probably has to be the Professor Utonium, since it is a character we've never gotten in pop form before, which is something that I feel like always drives people for the NFTs, is getting something that you may not get as terms to the actual Funko Pop set.
My least favorite is, yeah, it's definitely close between the Grail and the royalty. With the royalty, though, I do like the way that they went with using the Freddy Funko crown, how it's one of those pieces to the helmet and not actually like a physical crown on top of that. So, yeah, my least favorite, I think I am going to go with the Grail Mojo Jojo. This one's just not great, in my opinion. The girls with their instruments, I don't think are amazing pops either. I don't think it's really necessary, but at the same time, it is pretty cool to see them in this form. Maybe better than those ones that we've seen where they're on the colored stands. And then my favorite from the set, of course, is the Professor Utonium. This is awesome. If I was going to get any pop out of this set, it would be the Professor Utonium. And honestly, I do plan on buying this at some point on the secondary market.
And then we have ourselves the very last set of 2023, the very first Disney set that Funko has done for the NFTs, a drop exclusive. It is the Mickey and Friends Series 1 drop. We have 6 redeemables here, starting off with the Grail, 999 pieces. It is Minnie Mouse, along with the legendaries all being limited to 1,800 pieces, being Daisy Duck, Donald Duck, Goofy, and Pete, with the royalty being Mickey Mouse, limited to 2,500 pieces.
This is an interesting set. It doesn't scream NFT set to me. This seems like it could have easily just been a common wave of pops, and I don't love that for this, honestly. There are some pretty cool looking pops in this set, though, but for the most part, I just don't really think this drives people to want to buy these NFT pops.
So, as terms to favorites and least favorites, it's very difficult, honestly, to choose a favorite because I do find this to be one of the most lackluster sets they've done. And I think this was a bit of a poor way, in my opinion, to introduce the first Disney set of NFT pops. So, my least favorite, I feel like the Minnie Mouse, the Grail, because it just seems like it is just a regular Minnie Mouse. There's nothing really significant to it to where it would scream NFT. It just seems like something we've already seen in the commons. And my favorite probably has to be the Pete, just because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, Pete's never actually had a Funko Pop before. He's only had that Funko Soda. So this is technically the first Pete, if I'm not mistaken. But what makes me really hate this pop also, and I've mentioned this, and you can see it in the glam shot, is how you do have like the black on black as terms of the eyes and the fur, because you can just barely see the difference besides the kind of lighting tint you can see on the box there. I also think a close second, if I were to choose something for my favorite, would have to be the Goofy. I think the Goofy looks pretty mint.
And you know what? I got to agree with that completely. Least favorite, Minnie Mouse, because there's just not a lot going on with that pop. And my favorite is the Pete. I think that this one is really cool. I like the design of Pete here with the outfit that he has, and of course with the money in his hand, I think is awesome. So it's a pretty solid pop. I do think that the eye thing is a little bit weird as well, but maybe in person it won't be so bad.
All right, so now what we're going to be doing is basically we are going to be going down pretty much the list of all 20 drops of the Funko NFTs for 2023. And throughout all the sets, we're going to be talking about what our favorite legendary is, our favorite Grail, our favorite royalty, and our favorite set overall of what that is. My favorite Grail has to be Harvey Dent from the Dark Knight Trilogy set. That thing is absolutely awesome. And just recently, as we're recording this, people have been starting to receive the Dark Knight sets in their household, and the Harvey Dent is mint. The details are just as good as you see it on the glam shot, because sometimes, especially with drops like Sid and Marty Krofft, where you get the Seymour Spider and the pop ended up being way tinier than it actually was. So it's exactly what you've seen. And that was a really awesome pop. Then, as terms to my favorite legendary overall, of course, obviously there are way more legendaries than there are Grails and royalties, because you only get one Grail and one royalty for every set. So there's lots to choose from. I'm just going to go with the Lorraine. Back to the Future, it's a set I'm trying to get all the pops for. So at least for a set that I'm trying to get all the pops for, I'm going to go with the Lorraine for that case. The royalty out of all of them, I think I'm going to have to go with the Zombie Proto from the Funkoween drop. Although I think the close second may have been like the Daffy Duck as Pennywise, in my opinion. I think that Zombie Proto was just something so unique, in my opinion, to where I think it's the best royalty. For personal reason, my favorite set overall is the Back to the Future because, like I've mentioned, I'm going to be getting a master set for that. So why wouldn't it be my favorite when all the other drops I would just, sell the cards on Atomic Hub to get some Wax P back to buy packs for future drops or videos or redeemables that I actually want rather than the ones I get there. But if I'm going to do a more unbiased opinion, though, I think the best set had to be the Dark Knight.
All right, so starting off with my favorite Grail, I think I gotta go with the Mosquito and Amber from the Jurassic Park drop. I think that that is just such a cool pop. It's so different from a lot of things that we've seen with Funko and kind of makes a lot of sense to be an NFT pop. Then my favorite of the legendaries, I think I have to go with the Professor Utonium. That's a pop that I've wanted to see in the Powerpuff Girls lineup for a long time now. So it's great to see him, and that's a pop that I do plan on getting. And then for my favorite royalty, this one's tough because I do really like the Freddie Munson from the Stranger Things drop. I think that that's a really cool Freddy Funko, but I also have to go with the Proto as well. I mean, that is an amazing pop. It looks so cool. I think it's just a real badass pop. And the character of Proto is really awesome to see some more product for. And I would go as far as saying that this might be my favorite pop potentially of all of the NFT pops ever. And then when it comes to my favorite set for 2023, I think I have to go down the route that DK went with his set. No, I'm not choosing Back to the Future, but I'm taking Stranger Things as my favorite one because I am kind of going for a master set for that. I just don't have the Grail of the Dragon Pop, but I probably will get it eventually, whether I find it at a Comic-Con or something like that. So the Stranger Things set is pretty decent. I collect a lot of Stranger Things pops. And, there's not really any terrible pops out of this set, really. So yeah, I'd go with that for my favorite.
So now we're going to basically the focus of this podcast. That is 2024's Funko NFT drops, what we think of it so far with the limited drops we've gotten thus far, and what we want to see since obviously we're only a month past. But as terms of the drops, obviously, like I mentioned at the beginning, there was the Squid Game drop, Harry Potter drop, and then as we are recording this, we have yet to see Fantastic Plastic drop, but as this gets released, that drop will already happen. Starting off the Squid Game, I thought it was a bit lackluster, not gonna lie. It felt as if Squid Game should have been released maybe at some point last year, because I think the hype is kind of died down, especially seeing the actual pops end up in Dollarama. But actually, as we're recording this, they did release the trailer for season 2 yesterday. So I think maybe that there is a bit of hype going towards this, but at the same time, I don't know. Some of the redeemables are still cool, like the front man, but I just don't think like it was really well desired at this point, especially with over 50% of the packs being burned. So that's kind of got to say something. And then I guess I'll talk about the Harry Potter drop. So with that drop, it wasn't too bad. It was really cool to see 7 redeemables. It's the most we've ever seen in a drop. And for the most part, it's based off of the Goblet of Fire, but still pretty cool pops for the most part, especially getting that one dragon pop. And then we have like the mer person foot, I remember was a really cool pop. The Freddy Funko was also pretty decent, but then I feel like the upcoming drop of Fantastic Plastic will be a really awesome drop. I think that piece count's really low for the packs. I think it's 15,000. It's the lowest we've seen in a while. I think it's going to be well desired and maybe the first set of 2024 to sell out. I can't exactly predict that, especially when this gets released. We'll know the answer to that. Maybe it would sell out, maybe it's not, but I feel like it would be the most likely to sell out. I thought the Harry Potter was going to sell out, but nonetheless, I think the Fantastic Plastic drop is probably the best one thus far. I really want to see in 2024 some really cool and unique drops. I do want to see the return of some other drops, if I can be completely honest. Like, I would love to see the return of another Ad Icons drop. I think the first drop with Kellogg's in 2022 is really cool. Maybe we'll get a Kellogg Series 2, or maybe we'll get a General Mills Series 1. I've been really wanting Cinnamon Toast Crunch Funko Pops, as that's my favorite cereal. So if they made like Wendell, the baker from like the OG Cinnamon Toast Crunch, or even the Crazy Squares as pops, I think that would be pretty cool, not gonna lie. I think another drop that I would like to see in 2024, honestly, I think a SpongeBob drop would be pretty cool, especially because the anniversary is coming up. We can get some pretty cool pops. I kind of, speaking going down the Nickelodeon route, I would like to see a Nickelodeon Series 3, only because I feel that they kind of teased this with the April Fool's drop. I would love to see Max Tokenhead Drop's official mascot be transformed into a Funko Pop full on for the first time, instead of getting the mini version with the Freddy Funko in the April Fool's drop. I think getting Max Tokenhead slimed would be an absolutely amazing pop, and I would definitely get that even over one day getting the slimed Freddy Funko from Series 1 that happened in 2022. I kind of want to see a WWE drop for some reason. I think Freddy Funko as a referee would be pretty sweet, especially if maybe you have it in a sideways box where like it looks like he's about to do like a pin count. I think that would be pretty funny. As far as sets off the top of my head, like that's kind of some top tier ones. I don't want to see Toy Story because I feel like that would require them to make it a drop exclusive. And of course, my situation with not being able to get a drop marketplace account at the moment, it would really suck, especially trying to buy stuff on the secondary market because I can't get a drop marketplace account. But yeah, I would really love to see in 2024 some really unique sets. I think the beginning of that so far is that Fantastic Plastic drop. I think that's something that like a lot of people weren't really expecting, and I think that's like something to really spice up the lineup. I would like to see a lot of new Series 1 sets that like pique a lot of people's interest, and not so many of the Series 2. Like I don't mind a Series 2 or a Series 3 of a set. We're probably gonna get a series, technically it would be 4, but Series 2 actually of Funkoween. I would like to see finally announce that Rick and Morty drop that was rumored last year. I think that'd be pretty decent, especially if one of the redeemables is Morty Jr. I just want to see some really cool drop. I want 2024 to be the best year for the Funko NFTs, as terms to like ridiculously cool drops and not so many Series 2 or 3 drops.
So, starting off with what we've got so far in 2024, the Squid Game drop, I don't like it. I think it's very lackluster and just unnecessary. The Harry Potter drop, I think, is pretty cool. You get some interesting characters, and that's surprising because it seems like they've done everything with Harry Potter for Funko Pops, but that's cool to see. And I think that that set probably went over pretty well. And then the Fantastic Plastic lineup, that's pretty cool as well. I definitely like that. So far, it hasn't been too exciting, but I do think there is room over the year for us to get some really awesome drops. And some of those ones that I've kind of written down, I actually also did put SpongeBob. I think it just makes a lot of sense with the anniversary. And there being so many characters that we haven't seen, there's also so many memes that have come from SpongeBob, and it seems like Funko really is kind of getting into making some of those meme pops, just like the Jason Kelsey that me and DK were actually talking about earlier today. This is something that just happened and it's very meme worthy right now. And Funko's actually acknowledging that and doing it. So I could see us getting like some I'm a head out and like mocking SpongeBob, stuff like that. But I think the characters that we really want to see is Larry the Lobster. We want to see Doodle Bob, and we want to see the Flying Dutchman. We want to see Mrs. Puff, Pearl. There's so many different characters that we want to see. And I think this year we will get a lot of those SpongeBob pops. Whether it's NFTs or not, I don't know. But I think an NFT drop for SpongeBob would be killer. Then I would also like to see a Gremlins NFT drop. We kind of almost got it, it seemed like last year, but then of course they went with mostly like Pennywise and stuff like that, which was kind of unfortunate. But I would like to see a Gremlins drop. And I think at that time, that's a perfect way to incorporate like Billy, obviously the human character from the movie, because I don't know if that pop would necessarily sell very well as a common or even an exclusive, but in NFT form, I think that that would be really good. And then we could see some of the other gremlins in their Mogwai form. I think that that would be really cool. There's a bunch of different things that we could see, the Bat Gremlin, the Spider Gremlin. It could be really, really cool.
Then I just thought of a really neat set, and I remember I mentioned this in the past, I believe, and I think it wasn't in a video. I mentioned to you off camera is seeing Pokemon Funko NFTs. And the way that I would love for this to happen is if we get it exactly like almost like how people do like the card trick, where obviously you have your redeemables, but when you open up the packs, you start off with those like common and uncommons that you know aren't like the most expensive cards, but it leads up to, is your most expensive card going to be like the rare? Is it going to be a legendary, or do you land a grail? So I think doing it that way, and even adding like, even though it's kind of a stupid idea, but like hopified energy cards with like a little flame, you got the water. I think that's just something that'd be really cool. That would be like, oh man, like Pokemon Funko NFTs. It's already like, you know, people buy the cards. So I don't see why they don't dabble into that. I feel like though Nintendo might have something to do with the possibility that that probably isn't going to be a thing. Nintendo's already iffy about trying to give out their license so much. So already we got the pops. Maybe they don't want NFTs, but I think that'd be a really cool idea for the NFTs.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool. And maybe that's the potential chance where we would get some shiny Pokemon. I don't know, but I do like that idea. Of course, I bust open packs of Pokemon cards all the time. So I think that that would be one of those sets where I'd probably go crazy with buying packs. And then the last set that I have for sets that I would like to see in 2024 is a Sesame Street Funko NFT set. I think that this would be really cool. We can get more obscure characters out of this. I'm sure we would see, like, let's say your Cookie Monsters or your Elmos, but I would really like to see some characters that we haven't seen in pop form, like Abby Kadabi, I believe's her name. Telly Monster, I think, would be a wicked pop and hopefully be flocked for the NFT set. And then we could get the introduction of, again, human characters from Sesame Street in pop form, which to me just makes sense to come out in an NFT drop. And of course, most of you guys should know some of the characters like Gordon, Mr. Hooper, and then one that I think would be hilarious would be Mr. Noodle from like Elmo's World. I think would be just an awesome pop to see. And some of these human characters would be really cool. We haven't gotten Sesame Street pops in so long. I feel like we got to get more. And especially with some of the rumors that I'm hearing is that we kind of might be. So I don't see why they wouldn't do an NFT set in 2024.
Anyways, guys, that's going to be the end of this edition of a Funko Popcast. If you enjoyed this all NFT edition of a Funko Popcast, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what you want to see in 2024, and let us know your opinions from the 2023 drops. And we hope to see you guys on another edition of a Funko Popcast or video in general on the channel. 1, 2, 3, I'm out of here.
Peace in, peace out.